2025 Small Garden Ideas. How to maximize your space with beautiful plants. Hello, dear friends and fellow nature lovers. Welcome to Earthly Delights, where even the smallest patch of green can become a world of wonder. If you've ever looked around your tiny apartment and thought, there's no space for a garden here, or stood on your balcony dreaming of a greener view, then this video is for you. You, who works long hours but still finds joy in nurturing life. You, who lights up when a new leaf unfurls on your pothos. You, who believes that even one potted herb on the kitchen sill can change the mood of a whole day. I see you, I've been you. In 2025, our lives may be more digital than ever, but our hearts still long for nature. We crave spaces that breathe, corners that bloom, and a connection to something real in a world that often feels far too fast. Whether you're a beginner just discovering the magic of your first spider plant, or a seasoned green thumb looking to do more with less space, you're in the right place. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through 10 powerful small garden ideas that can help you transform your space, no matter how tiny, into something deeply personal and profoundly beautiful. So grab your tea, settle into your favorite chair, and let's begin this journey into the art of small space gardening, where growth isn't just about plants, but about peace, purpose, and a little everyday magic. And hey, if you enjoy what we're building here at Earthly Delights, don't forget to subscribe and join our growing community of plant lovers from around the world. Ready? Let's get our hands a little dirty, in the best way possible. 1. Vertical gardening. Rise up and grow. Now that we've set the stage, let's begin our journey where many small garden dreams take root, in the vertical space around us. If you're watching this, chances are your floor space is limited. Maybe you're working with a narrow balcony, a compact patio, or even just a single blank wall in your apartment. And like many plant lovers, you've probably asked yourself, where can I even fit more plants? Here's the secret: look up. Vertical gardening is a game changer for those of us living in tight quarters. It's more than just stacking pots or hanging baskets. It's a way of thinking that transforms your walls, fences, and even door frames into living, breathing art. And if you're someone who finds joy in organizing, curating, or creating visual harmony in your space, this method will feel like second nature to you. I remember one client of mine, a young graphic designer living in a 35 square meter apartment, who turned an entire living room wall into a lush vertical garden. She used a mix of recycled wooden crates, small terracotta pots, and even vintage spice racks to house trailing pothos, fragrant basil, and vibrant nasturtiums. The wall became more than decoration, it became a living story, changing week by week. That's the power of going vertical. And the best part? You don't need expensive gear or fancy systems. A bit of creativity, a few wall hooks or shelves, and you're on your way. From trailing ivy and philodendrons to compact herbs and even strawberries, the possibilities are endless. For those of you who love interior design, vertical gardening also adds depth and texture to a room or balcony. It softens hard edges and brings a sense of life to otherwise dull corners. And for my fellow renters, yes, many vertical systems are totally removable and non-damaging, so your deposit is safe. Vertical gardening is where design meets function, where small space meets big impact. So if your green dreams have felt boxed in by square footage, remember, there's a whole world waiting just above eye level. Shall we move upward together? 2. Indoor herb gardens. Freshness at your fingertips. So now that we've looked upward and explored the beauty of vertical gardening, let's shift our focus inward, to the heart of your home. Because sometimes, the most magical gardens don't live outside, they thrive right next to your sink, on your kitchen shelf, or nestled by a sunny window. Indoor herb gardens are one of the simplest yet most satisfying ways to bring greenery into your daily life. And if you're the kind of person who loves to cook, values natural remedies, or simply enjoys the scent of fresh basil in the morning, this one's especially for you. I've met so many people, students, busy parents, remote workers, who thought they didn't have the time, space, or skill to grow anything indoors. But the moment they planted that first sprig of rosemary or mint, something changed. There's something deeply grounding about watching herbs grow in the same space where you make your coffee or read your emails. And the beauty is, herbs are forgiving. They don't need much, just a bit of light, a container with good drainage, and your occasional attention. Start with easy ones like basil, thyme, or parsley. Place them near a window that gets a few hours of sun and you'll be amazed at how quickly they reward you, with both fragrance and flavor. One of my favorite things to do is reuse old glass jars or mismatched mugs as herb planters. It's sustainable, charming, and each container adds personality to your space. Plus, harvesting your own herbs, snipping a little oregano or sage before dinner, feels like such a quiet luxury. For those of you who live in cooler climates or don't have much natural light, consider a small grow light. These compact, affordable tools make it easy to cultivate herbs year-round, rain or shine. And here's the real joy. An indoor herb garden doesn't just nourish your meals, it nourishes your senses. The scent of fresh mint, the soft green of new leaves, the gentle ritual of watering each morning. These small moments remind us to slow down, to connect, and to care. So whether you're growing for flavor, fragrance, or simply the feeling of something alive by your side, an herb garden is your invitation to bring nature home. And with that, shall we move on to our next green idea, where the containers you choose can be just as inspiring as the plants they hold. 3. Creative container gardening. Every pot has a story. If herbs bring the garden into your kitchen, then containers bring the garden to wherever your imagination allows. This next chapter is for the creatives, the collectors, the sentimental souls who see beauty not just in plants, but in the things that hold them. Because container gardening isn't just about convenience. It's about expression. It's about personality. And if you've ever looked at an old teacup, a chipped bowl, or an unused drawer and thought, maybe I could plant something in this, then you, my friend, are already speaking the language of the container gardener. In small spaces, pots become our best allies. They allow us to move, rearrange, and experiment. But more than that, they give us the chance to tell a story. I once visited a home where every planter had a memory. There were succulents in a childhood lunchbox, ferns growing from a vintage watering can, and lavender blooming in a cracked ceramic bowl passed down through 3 generations. Each container was imperfect, but together, they were magical. The truth is, plants don't ask for perfection. They don't care if your pot is from an expensive boutique or a flea market. What they do care about is drainage, a little light, and your willingness to care. And in return, they'll reward you with color, life, and a presence that softens any room. For those of you who enjoy DIY projects or love giving second life to forgotten things, container gardening is a playground. Wooden crates become tomato boxes. Worn-out boots turn into cheerful flower beds. Even a stack of old books, hollowed out and sealed, can cradle a few tiny succulents. And what's beautiful about containers is the freedom they offer. Want a cactus on your desk? Done. Need a calming fern near your bed? No problem. Curious about growing peppers on your balcony? You can shift, rotate, rearrange. It's a dance between you and the green. Container gardening is how you bring intention to chaos, color to corners, and stories into your soil. So next time you're tempted to throw something away, pause, ask yourself, could this hold life? Because in the world of small gardens, every pot has the potential to be a treasure chest. Shall we keep going? Next, let's explore a garden space that isn't just about plants, but about peace. 4. Mini Zen Gardens, tranquility in a tray. By now, we've played with height, touched on flavor, and even breathed new life into forgotten containers. But let's slow things down for a moment, because not all gardens are loud with color or bursting with growth. Some speak in whispers, some invite stillness, and that's exactly where the magic of a mini Zen garden comes in. This part is for the seekers of calm, the overthinkers, the ones who lie awake at night running through to-do lists, craving a pause button for the mind. If you've ever felt like the noise of modern life is just too much, this little garden could be your quiet rebellion. A mini Zen garden doesn't require sunlight. It doesn't even require soil. What it offers is space, a sacred, small space, for mindfulness. Imagine a shallow tray filled with soft sand, a few carefully chosen stones, maybe a patch of moss or a tiny succulent. each element placed with intention, not just to look beautiful, but to feel grounding. I know someone, a freelance writer juggling deadlines and caring for an elderly parent, who created a Zen garden on her coffee table. Every evening, before shutting down her laptop, she'd take 5 minutes to rake patterns in the sand, circles, lines, spirals. Her thoughts would settle as the sand moved. Her breath would deepen. She called it her daily reset. And it's true, there's something deeply meditative about tending a space so small. It reminds us that presence doesn't require a perfect setting, it just requires attention. You can build your own Zen garden using simple materials: a wooden tray, fine sand, a few pebbles, maybe a miniature bamboo rake or a soft brush. Add a touch of green with a tiny aloe, a dwarf fern, or a single air plant resting gently among the stones. What matters isn't the variety of plants, but the ritual of care. The quiet moments between the chaos. For those of you living in shared spaces, noisy neighborhoods, or fast-paced routines, a mini Zen garden is more than decor. It's a boundary, a little patch of peace that says, "This moment belongs to me." So take a breath, let the world slow down, and when you're ready, we'll step out onto the balcony and see what beauty awaits us there. 5. Balcony Oases. A garden in the sky. After finding stillness in our miniature Zen spaces, it's time to step outside, up into the open air, where the city hums below and the sky stretches wide above. Let's talk about balconies. If you're lucky enough to have even the tiniest balcony, you're holding a blank canvas of potential. And if you're someone who finds joy in cozy corners, soft lighting, and the feeling of a breeze through your plants, this next idea might just become your favorite chapter. I've seen balconies no bigger than a yoga mat transformed into lush little escapes. Places where you can sip tea surrounded by flowering geraniums, where hummingbirds hover near lavender, and the soft glow of string lights turns an ordinary evening into something almost cinematic. The beauty of a balcony garden is that it blends indoor comfort with outdoor freshness. You're not giving up modern life, you're weaving nature into it. And for those of you who live in high-rises, dense urban areas, or shared housing, this space becomes a bridge between worlds. Your private skyward sanctuary. Start simple: a few pots with herbs or flowers, a chair with a cushion that invites you to sit, just for 5 minutes. Add hanging baskets or railing planters to maximize space. Choose plants that love sun, like petunias, rosemary, or dwarf citrus, if your balcony gets plenty of light. Or go for ferns and coleus in shady spots. And don't forget the magic of atmosphere. A small lantern, a wind chime, a lightweight rug underfoot. These details don't just decorate your balcony, they define it. They turn it into a destination, not just a pass-through space. I once met a woman in Barcelona who called her balcony her third room. She didn't have a dining area inside, so she set up a folding table and chairs outside, surrounded it with potted lavender and olive trees. And every evening, she'd light a candle, pour a glass of wine, and breathe in the scent of her little world. That's the power of a balcony garden. It's not just about the plants, it's about the experience, the ambiance, the ritual of stepping outside, even if only a few feet, and feeling like you've traveled somewhere nourishing. So if your balcony's been sitting empty or underused, maybe it's time to reimagine it. What would it feel like to create a garden in the sky? Let's keep going, because next, we're bringing the beauty of nature back inside in the most surprising way. 6. Indoor green walls. Nature meets tech. Now, let's come back inside, but with a new perspective. Because what if the very walls around you could grow? What if your living room, your hallway, or even your kitchen could come alive? Not just with color, but with oxygen, energy, and a quiet kind of wonder? Indoor green walls, or living walls, are where nature meets design. And if you're someone who loves a clean aesthetic, a touch of innovation, or the balance between tech and tranquility, this idea is going to speak to you in a whole new way. Think of it like a vertical canvas. Except instead of paint, you're working with plants, ferns cascading like waterfalls, ivy weaving through wooden frames, herbs stretching toward a kitchen window. These walls are more than decoration, they're dynamic. They shift with the seasons, respond to light, and even help purify the air around you. I once visited a small apartment where the entire entryway was lined with modular planters. each one home to a different variety of trailing greenery. It felt like walking into a forest. Even though you were still 3 floors above the city streets, the light danced through the leaves, and the scent of basil and lemon balm followed you from one room to the next. And here's the thing. Creating your own indoor green wall doesn't have to be complicated. There are ready-made systems you can install with minimal tools. Or you can go the DIY route with shelves, hanging pockets, or even repurposed shoe organizers. The key is light, natural or artificial, and choosing plants that thrive in your environment. For bright spaces, consider spider plants, pothos, and philodendrons. For lower light areas, go with ZZ plants, peace lilies, or certain types of ferns. And if you're feeling adventurous, you can even include edibles like strawberries or microgreens. And for those of you who enjoy the digital side of life, some systems now come with smart irrigation, moisture sensors, and even apps that tell you when your plants need love. It's the perfect blend of nature and nurture, tradition and technology. An indoor green wall isn't just an upgrade to your home, it's an invitation. A living, breathing reminder to slow down, look up, and reconnect. Every glance at those leaves becomes a tiny exhale. Every new shoot feels like a personal win. So as your walls come to life, ask yourself, what story do I want them to tell? And from here, we'll keep climbing, because next, we're heading even higher, into the floating worlds of hanging planters. 7. Hanging planters, floating green dreams. From walls that breathe to balconies that bloom, our journey now takes a lighter turn, literally. Because what if your garden didn't rest on the ground or cling to the walls, but floated? What if it swayed gently above you, catching the light, dancing with the breeze? Welcome to the world of hanging planters. A world where plants don't just grow, they hover. They drape. They cascade like living chandeliers. This is for the dreamers, the romantics, the ones who rearrange their rooms for the 5th time just to see how the sunlight lands in the afternoon. If you've ever wanted your space to feel a little more magical, a little more like a storybook, this is where that feeling begins to take shape. There's something undeniably poetic about a plant suspended midair. It takes up almost no floor space, yet transforms the room completely. Whether it's a trailing ivy tumbling from a macrame hanger, a string of pearls swaying gently in the kitchen window, or a bold fern floating in the corner of your living room, hanging plants bring softness, height, and depth that few other elements can offer. And you don't need high ceilings or fancy hooks to make it happen. Even a tension rod across a sunny window can become a stage for your green companions. Use light chain, clear fishing wire, or natural rope. Let the materials reflect your style. For those who lean into the boho vibe, macrame is a beautiful choice. For the minimalists, sleek metal rings or geometric holders work perfectly. One of my favorite examples comes from a couple who transformed their tiny kitchen into a green nook by hanging 6 small planters above their sink. They grew herbs, trailing pothos, and even a miniature tomato variety. As they cooked, the plants would brush their shoulders, like quiet reminders of life and care. Even in everyday tasks, hanging planters also create what I like to call garden ceilings, layers of greenery that make a room feel alive from top to bottom. If your space ever feels flat or a little too still, just look up. Your garden can exist there, too. And of course, let's not forget the added benefit: keeping delicate plants out of reach from curious pets or little hands. So if you've been staring at that empty space above your desk, your sofa, or your bathtub, maybe it's time to let something green take flight. Because when your plants are suspended, so is your imagination. Next, we'll explore a style of gardening that's not only practical and beautiful, but deeply sustainable. Let's talk about turning yesterday's waste into tomorrow's wonder. 8. Upcycled gardening, from trash to treasure. After watching plants float like poetry in midair, let's bring our feet gently back to the ground, where something equally magical is happening. It's not just about what we grow, but how we grow it. And sometimes, the most meaningful gardens don't begin at a nursery or a store. They begin in your recycling bin. Upcycled gardening is where creativity meets sustainability. And if you're someone who values conscious living, who hates throwing things away, or who gets a little thrill from giving old objects a second life, this is your moment. It's easy to believe that gardening requires fancy planters, expensive tools, or matching pots from a boutique. But the truth? Some of the most beautiful, heartfelt gardens I've ever seen were built from what others considered waste. Old tin cans become herb containers. Wooden pallets turn into vertical garden walls. Mason jars, chipped mugs, broken baskets, all of it can be transformed into something living. Something new. And the best part? These pieces come with history, with personality, with stories waiting to grow. I remember visiting a community garden in a quiet neighborhood, where every planter was upcycled. One woman had planted lettuces in her daughter's outgrown rain boots. Another had lined her balcony with milk cartons painted by hand. A group of local kids even built a strawberry tower out of stacked soda bottles. It wasn't just eco-friendly, it was alive with character. And for those of you watching who care deeply about the planet, and I know many of you do, this is such a powerful step. It's gardening with intention. It's asking not just what can I grow, but how can I grow responsibly? The process is simple. Look around your home before heading to the store. A drawer that's missing a handle? A cracked bowl you've been meaning to toss? A piece of wood left over from a project? Pause. Imagine, could it cradle a plant? And if you have children or young ones in your life, this kind of gardening becomes a beautiful shared ritual. It teaches creativity, respect for resources, and the joy of making something from nothing. So let your garden be both green and good. Let it speak of second chances and quiet revolutions. Because in every upcycled planter, there's a story of renewal. And as your hands work with what once was discarded, you'll find that the garden is growing something inside you. 2. Ready to turn your green thumb toward food? Up next, we'll explore how to grow your own vegetables in even the smallest spaces, and how a raised bed can bring big rewards. 9. Mini raised beds, big yields in small spaces. As we move through this garden journey together, from floating planters to recycled beauty, there's one dream that keeps returning for many of us. The dream of growing our own food, of harvesting something real with our own hands. And no, you don't need a big backyard to do it. Welcome to the world of mini raised beds, a small space solution with a surprisingly big impact. If you've ever longed to pick your own tomatoes, to pull a carrot from the soil, or to sprinkle just harvested lettuce onto your dinner plate, this might be the moment you've been waiting for. Because raised beds aren't just for farms or sprawling gardens. They belong on balconies, patios, rooftops, and even sunny corners of your kitchen. I once worked with a grandfather and his young granddaughter who created a raised bed out of a vintage wooden wine crate. They filled it with soil, tucked in a few seedlings, and by summer, they were harvesting strawberries together in the golden evening light. It wasn't just a garden, it was a bond, a ritual, a memory in the making. That's the magic of raised beds. They bring people together, they bring nourishment to your table, and they give you control over the soil, the drainage, and the layout, even in the most compact spaces. Start small. A wooden box, a deep drawer, even a recycled storage bin can become a raised bed with the right care. Add good quality soil, compost if you have it, and choose crops that love container life. Think baby greens, radishes, cherry tomatoes, peppers, or even small root vegetables like carrots. And here's something beautiful. Watching your own food grow changes your relationship with what you eat. Suddenly, salad isn't just salad, it's a celebration. It's something you nurtured from seed to table. You'll waste less, savor more, and feel a quiet pride with every bite. Mini raised beds also offer a sense of rhythm. The planting, the watering, the waiting, the joy. It brings you into the natural cycle of things, reminding us that growth takes time, patience, and presence. And isn't that what we're all craving in this fast, flickering world? So whether you're feeding a family or just feeding your soul, let this be the year you grow something edible, even if it's just a handful of leaves from a box on your porch. And now, for our final idea, let's end this journey not just with plants, but with a little bit of magic. Let's step into the whimsical world of fairy gardens. 10. Fairy gardens. Magic in miniature. And now, we arrive at the final stop on our journey, where gardening becomes something more than care and cultivation. Where it transforms into play, into imagination, into pure, delightful wonder. Welcome to the world of fairy gardens. If you've followed this far, chances are you already feel the enchantment of growing things. But fairy gardens take that feeling and magnify it, shrinking the scale while expanding the heart. These tiny landscapes invite not just green thumbs, but daydreamers. They remind us of stories, of childhood, of the quiet belief that magic still exists in the small spaces we often overlook. I've seen fairy gardens in windowsills, tucked beside staircases, nestled at the base of indoor trees, even balanced on bookshelves like hidden worlds waiting to be discovered. A tiny cottage made from bark, a winding path of pebbles and moss, a miniature swing hanging from a bonsai's branch. These aren't just decorations, they're invitations to wonder. And if you're someone who collects little things, who finds joy in details, or who's looking for a way to make your garden feel personal and alive, this is a beautiful way to begin. There's no one right way to make a fairy garden. Some use succulents and moss. Others prefer ferns and creeping ground covers. You can build it in a teacup, a terrarium, a shallow bowl, or directly in the soil. What matters is the intention, the care you pour into creating something tiny and full of life. One woman I met created a fairy garden each year with her son. Using natural materials they gathered on weekend walks. Twigs for fences, stones for steps, bottle caps turned into fairy seats. It became their tradition, their shared world, built piece by piece as the seasons turned. And for those of you who feel creatively blocked or weighed down by the seriousness of adulthood, this might be the most healing garden of all. It's a space where the rules soften, where imagination grows wild, and where beauty doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to feel alive. Let your fairy garden whisper its own story. Maybe it's a scene from your favorite book. Maybe it's the garden you dreamed of as a child. Or maybe it's simply a quiet corner where magic gets to live. Just for you. Because sometimes, in the smallest gardens, we find the biggest reminders to play, to wonder, and to believe in something a little beyond the visible. And now that we've explored all 10 ideas, from sky-high planters to tiny enchanted forests, let's bring everything together into a closing that reminds us why we started this journey in the first place. Ready for the final reflection? A garden beyond space. So, whether you're growing herbs on a kitchen shelf, trailing ivy down a window, building a fairy garden in a teacup, or simply watching a single pothos leaf unfurl, remember this: your garden doesn't have to be big to be meaningful. It just has to be yours. For those of you watching, city dwellers, apartment renters, tiny home dreamers, balcony gardeners, lovers of soft light and slower mornings, this journey has been for you. You who believe that green things can grow in concrete places. You who find peace in the rhythm of watering. You who look at an empty corner and see a jungle waiting to happen. Here on Earthly Delights, we believe that small spaces hold big potential, and every plant you nurture is a quiet act of hope. If today's ideas inspired you, or helped you see your own space a little differently, don't forget to subscribe, so you don't miss what's coming next. We've got more stories, more tips, and more ways to help you root deeply, no matter where you live. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Until next time, keep growing, keep dreaming, and remember, the smallest garden can hold the greatest joy. Are you happy with this closing? If yes, I can help you prep the next script or shape it for publishing.